Hello, this is the NICU Lived Network, and we are your hosts. I'm Melinda.
I'm Nat.
And I'm Emma. We are all NICU mothers using our lived experience to partner with health professionals to impact research, advocacy, and clinical practice.
Each week we will bring you something new. It could be a topic highlight, the latest in research, a visit to a NICU, or ways in which you can use your lived experience within the NICU to impact change. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Well, hello, you have Mel and Nat back for another episode of the NICU Lived Network. Hey, Nat.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. It's lovely to be back.
Good. Absolutely. We don't have Em today, but today is a really special episode, and we were just talking about that just before we hit record, weren't we, Nat? We have Lauren and Juliette from the Adult Preemie Advocacy Network. And I think the reason that it's really special for us is that every time that we've spoken to people or had guests on the show, like, we are mums of babies that have been born early or sick and spent time in the NICU, and we've spoken to other parents, and we've also spoken to the NICU staff or the researchers. But what's really special about today is, just like the name suggests, Lauren and Juliette are adult preemies. So for us, I think I think this is going to be a really special episode for us, because it's like talking to our babies fast forward in a way. So thank you so much to you both for joining.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
That's fantastic. So just to give our viewers a little bit about you, do you want to both go through your amazing birth stories?
Okay. So I was born. So I'm Juliette, and I was born at 28 weeks and 4 days gestation due to complications around twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. And my twin and I were born via an emergency cesarean section, bright and early in the morning at a major kind of level 3 hospital in London. And we had a long NICU stay. I required kind of lots of bits with help with breathing, help with feeding, help with growing. And my twin had quite severe complications, had some brain bleeds, and was with us until we were 12 years old, after quite a long battle with lots of complex health needs. And I'm fortunate to be here today with lots of different hats on, including my adult preemie hat. I've also had the opportunity to train as a children's nurse as well, and meet wonderful people like Lauren.
Thank you. So I was born at 26 weeks and weighing 430 grams in 1988, so I'm 35 now. My mum had preeclampsia. She was really unwell. She didn't really get to see me for about 48 hours afterwards, and I was transferred from a local hospital to a bigger neonatal unit. Like Juliette, I was on a ventilator for about 5 months, so I've got vocal cord paralysis from being on the ventilator, needed help with feeding, but I was quite fortunate. I didn't require any surgery or any major medical interventions.
Can I just ask you, because as like a mum, I'd be able to rattle off, like my sons and their hospital journeys, but for both of you, like, this is your experience of what you went through. How did you learn your stories? Like, how did you, like, your mum, like your parents have spoken to you about, like, how?
My mum.
My 27 week is 19 now, and I don't know how in depth I've gone through his entire journey that he would be able to recall it the way that you both do.
Yeah.
My mum was very honest with me from the start, not about the details, but because I'm only 4'10", so I'm really small, and I've always been small, and I was bullied quite a lot at school for my height and my voice. But she's always just said to me, look, you are different to other kids, but that doesn't mean you're not normal, if you like, and kids just react to things that are different to them, but that doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you.
And I was very lucky. I've always been a very nosy Parker, is a British saying for someone who's just really interested in everything. And growing up alongside my twin until we were teenagers, I saw a lot of medical care, and that always just prompted me to ask those questions. And my parents were always very willing and very honest with me, that if I asked a question, they didn't skirt around the issue. They were happy to give me an answer, but it was, as a young child, it was in a way that I could understand at that time. And when I got more interested through, learning more at school, maybe that prompted me to ask new questions, and they were always happy to answer. And I was very fortunate that my dad loves taking photos. So he had the opportunity to come and meet me and my twin on the day we were born, before my mum was well enough or awake enough to see us, full of all sorts of medicines from her cesarean section. He came and took photographs of us as he met us. So I have the first photograph of me was within hours of my birth, and I'm able to use those to also piece together that journey through NICU.
Wow. And just wondering, because I know when my boys were born, there was always this kind of expectation of, oh yeah, they were born premature, but that's not going to be an issue later, like when they're 2 or 3 years old, you won't have to worry about corrected ages, and they should catch up, or by the time they're at school, it's not going to be an issue. And I think I always thought that their premature journey would be something that would be parked in something that we wouldn't have to think about anymore once they went to school, which didn't happen. Actually became a real shock to us when the boys reached school, that actually there are some really big things that we have to look at and continue to deal with. So I'm just interested, as adults, how has your premature birth and journey affected your life growing up, and particularly affected you as adults now?
Well, I was definitely under that umbrella understanding back in the day that by 2 you're caught up. And my family were faced with huge challenges with my twin and huge health problems for her, that in comparison, I was an extremely well child, that my prematurity faded into the background. And that's something that is definitely gaining more momentum, that Natalie, your experience is definitely being experienced by more and more families and being talked about by more individuals, that actually the lifelong reach of prematurity can give us great passion, great intrigue, great ability to discuss these sorts of things, but also concerns around thinking about school, mathematics, also socialization, friendships, relationships, having confidence, having concerns. And that's something that's being talked about more these days, and we want it to carry on taking momentum.
Just to follow on from what Juliette said, I think so many of us fall between the cracks, that if you're not born with a disability, or there aren't things that are picked up really early on, you're then constantly compared to a full-termer, but without that awareness and understanding, and you're made to feel like it's almost a personal issue rather than something you may not be able to help because of your development. And also that there isn't the awareness that chronic health conditions may develop later on in late teens, early adulthood. So things like blood pressure issues, diabetes, kidney function issues, possible heart issues. And that's not a guarantee that every preemie will experience these issues. But with awareness, you can then monitor and follow up and catch anything before it becomes a big issue.
Oh, wow. I didn't realise that. I'm just thinking, Mel, ages ago, you made a comment to me, was, when you do take your kids to see the GP, maybe GP should be asking, or maybe I should be mentioning they were preemie babies, because I just always thought I don't need to mention that anymore. That was the past. But, the comment that perhaps, they're at risk of developing conditions later on as well. It's kind of like, oh, okay, this is something that should continue to be front and center when I, talk to health professionals about my boys, and, that their story as a preemie baby is probably something that will always be relevant. As in, far into adulthood as well.
And even though prematurity happened potentially many, many years ago, it is still the first major kind of health event for a young person, and it's really quite significant. And it's working out how to have those conversations and hoping and teaching those primary care providers, those GPs, about how to hold these conversations and how to try and ask for that information and understand when an answer is given.
Absolutely.
Well, but that leads us to what you've created with the Adult Preemie Advocacy Network. So tell us how did the two of you connect, and then where did the idea come from?
The conversations with friends is where it started. It started with a chat on a Facebook kind of messenger group between a few people who we'd kind of each met along the way doing kind of research projects, actually, is where it came from, and kind of paths crossing. And from that, we've grown a group of people who are interested in research, and how that has flourished into a group of advocacy, networking, helping people kind of promote for themselves, advocate for themselves, and grown kind of a network that spans different bits across the internet and across the globe.
So when you say research, as in not as participants or both participants, but then also, as people that put input into trials, into the design of trials, or what the question of a trial is, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
We've been lucky to be involved in every kind of step of the way.
Wow.
I think that's been quite helpful, that the first contact I had with other people born preterm in an environment where you were thinking about those sorts of things was as a participant in a project about looking at outcomes for neonatal research. So yes, it's very relevant for our little kind of journey through NICU, but it meant that I face to face met these people who had had similar experiences to me. And since then, we've had our fingers in lots of pies and been invited to be involved at every step of the way with projects that are really valuable and that have approached us and asked our opinions.
And is the network just, is it just based in the UK, or do you connect across the world with other adult preemies?
Worldwide. We just set up the advocacy group, and I think that because both me and Juliette are in the UK, I think maybe we assumed we'd have more members from the UK, but it's open to anyone. So we have members within Europe, Australia, South America, all over really. It's amazing. I think we've been quite surprised how many people have connected with us from all over the world. And all saying a similar thing, that their prematurity hasn't been recognised as they've been growing up.
Yeah. And amongst the kind of adult preemie cohort, are there other kind of common themes or that kind of come up in discussions, or kind of like, oh, this is also another issue that should be looked into, or that affects us?
We're in a very privileged position that we have a closed group on Facebook just for individuals who are born preterm, and we have the honour to hear some of people's deepest struggles, and lots of them just, ting a little chord in each of us. And there are opportunities to discuss mental health and mental resilience, or opportunities to discuss even just things like our height, things that pointed out by peers that you're just trying to get a bit of an answer for, struggles with communication or relationships or education or being listened to by healthcare providers, that we're in such a privileged position that these people who are our peers are bringing up concerns that we also need to have some space to talk about. So it's very much all these two-way conversations that are benefiting everyone involved.
I think what you've done is absolutely incredible. I think, like I said, starting as a parent to then see that this is available and it exists, I'm just completely in awe of it. Where are you hoping the network will go? What's your hope for it? It hasn't been going for very long. It's a couple of years. Yeah, I think I read 2021. You guys?
Yeah, so it's about 2.5 years that we've been kind of a named thing, and we've been looking into how we take things forward, and it's going to be a shoot for the moon thing, to make sure that we are as ambitious as we possibly can, and just learning how to take each little step on the road, finding people who can be allies with us, like yourselves, people who are wanting to talk to us and continuing to give us that boost so we can take each step to work out how we contact more people, how we create more of a kind of a global hub, how we can draw research together and start to do some kind of outputs where we're hoping to teach other people that we have the right words and the right sort of format that means we can contact people outside our community, so parents and clinicians and researchers and other people that are interested and want to learn a little bit more, that they think of us and come to us, and we can provide them with this absolute font of knowledge which is there. It just needs to be put together like a puzzle.
Yeah. I think as a parent of twins, I really, this, it's really heartwarming for me, because I just think for my kids, there's potentially a way that they can connect and meet with kind of other, people growing up that had a similar kind of stories. I think, it'd be, if they're interested, something quite wonderful and powerful for them.
I know
it's been powerful for us.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've been saying probably since my kids were born is that, so much is focused when they're in hospital, when you're in the NICU, but as a parent, that's like getting discharged isn't where that journey ends. It's really where it all begins for us. And watching, what happens once they are discharged from the NICU and as they grow and into being toddlers and preschool and high school and beyond. So I think like you're kind of the living proof of what we talk about, saying this is bigger than the unit. There's so much need, there's so much like we need to raise awareness, we need to have these conversations. It does need to be recognised a lot more within the general health system. I remember taking Dylan not too long ago just to get his eyes tested, his first year of uni, and one of the first things I mentioned was his 27-weeker. He was, tested for ROC when he was in hospital, but just that it was part of the conversation. And I think that's what's so important about having these talks, is that we can help parents navigate our way through that. And also as our preemies grow up and they navigate themselves. And like you said, it's such a big health thing to happen right out from the gate, like the second that they're born. And it is something that's lifelong and needs to have focus and attention probably for their entire lives.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think that change of framing, Mel, was huge for me to realise it's for their entire life.
Yeah, absolutely. So what advice would you give, firstly, parents of preterm babies, and then what advice would you give to other adult preemies like yourselves?
So parents, I would say, you know your child better than anyone else. If they are coming to you with concerns or worries, or you're picking up on something that you think needs to be addressed, keep going. Whoever you need to scream at, go and scream at them and keep screaming until they listen to you.
And that will give your preemie the confidence to do the same as well, which is super valuable, that they can grow up knowing that they're allowed to ask for advice or support or to learn more about their journey. We do acknowledge that preterm journey has a massive impact on families as well, and would encourage parents to seek that support. Could it be financial support, emotional support, mental health support, to seek that as well, so that they're feeling in a confident spot to teach their little one about their journey. I would want every parent to share all the photos and to discuss all those good days, bad days, all those moments, because it's the first building blocks of that child in their road for life, and it can help them learn an awful lot.
And as a mum, it's something you never ever wish in a million years, and we hold a lot of guilt over that, and we talk about that all the time, mother's guilt, but
it's not your fault. No. And we know that the older, not that we blame you anyway, but we don't feel any kind of resentment towards you guys. We're in awe of any preemie parents, because we're on the other side and we see how hard you fight for us.
And the experience that you went through, that you were flung in, we had no choice to be born early, but you guys have
choose
that
to give
choice
birth
either. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
a real challenge, and a big part of the conversations we've had in the past and the research that we are kind of delving through, there is a lot on how families cope and how siblings cope, and how it's such often a really unprepared as well, that maybe it's not really talked about enough. My parents were told that, oh, second baby and twins, so they might come a bit early, they might come quite quickly, you know, just be prepared that they might come at home. So dad, this is where you keep the towels and the bowl of water, and then we were born 2 days later, you know, via emergency section and on life support. And that's not a picture. They had that picture in their head for less than 24 hours. And it was never really talked about. And I think that must be utterly terrifying. And then there is also like the school of thought of how that interaction changes, and how that real trauma time for families and the physiological trauma for those NICU infants, how that is a real massive challenge for everyone, and how that can play a part.
Oh, just for like if you kind of meet other adult premies along the way, what kind of advice or what kind of things would you like to share with them?
You're right.
Yeah.
There is so much gaslighting around from healthcare professionals, perhaps at school, because teachers don't understand the impacts of prematurity on your, like Juliette said, maths and fine motor skills, so artwork, things like that. It's just believe in yourself and that what you're experiencing is real. It's not in your head, and don't let anyone make you feel like it is just in your head.
And there is always an answer, even if it's we don't know. That doesn't mean that something isn't more difficult for that individual, or that they don't need a little bit of more time maybe, or explained in a different way, because that's just how their brain is wired.
Yeah.
And a don't know is still an answer, rather than, oh, it's not there because I can't see it, or I can't test it or measure it, or, oh, borderline this, borderline that, so therefore you can't have anything. But also I want adult preemies to understand that there's kind of two different schools of kind of feeling, that some people are extremely proud and feel that they've already achieved so much in their life by getting through their neonatal journey, and that brings them a lot of oomph and vigor. And there's other thoughts that people don't want to acknowledge it in that way, that they see it's just a part of something that happened, and it happened in the past. But those views are still really valid, that if you don't have to feel the same way I do about being born preterm, your feelings are really valid. But I want you to acknowledge that, let that be, and also not let that make you shut the door and say, I'm over 2 years old now, it's going to go in the cupboard, be locked away and ignored, because it can't be. It still needs to be respected.
Yeah. Do you think there's enough kind of priority or attention paid to kind of the experiences of preemie adults, like generally?
No,
kind of
we are, as far as we know, the only global network that acknowledges this is built for those born preterm. And it's something that what we find in the UK is you'll talk to your GP, your primary healthcare provider, about something. You'd go around in circles and then get annoyed enough and put in a complaint, and you'll end up seeing a registrar at the hospital. That will not really go anywhere. They'll say, you'll see my consultant in 6 months' time. 2 years later, when you actually get to see the consultant, that's where someone actually might have a specialist interest, or might acknowledge the impact your prematurity may have. They kind of very softly say, well, maybe. But why has it taken 2.5 years to get to that point?
And why is it still a maybe?
Yeah.
No offence, but a lot of us missed off the trimester, or even part of that development. Why is it still, it might have? Well, it probably did.
There's a reason that we're not all born at 26, 28, 30 weeks. There's a big reason.
But also the acknowledgement that being born at later term still has an impact, and that's so important. There is so much emphasis on those that were born really early or have medical complications.
Limited viability sort of puppies.
But I mean, there is awareness that just being born a few weeks early can potentially have an impact on you.
But that seems not relevant to any of us. None of us are those 1 in 100. None of us seem to be the ones that are going to struggle yet here we are saying that, fighting the corner, saying, could this be because of my prematurity and being labelled as a hypochondriac and being sent away to a psychiatrist? It's one of the most humiliating kind of moments in my life. And as a nurse as well, I have a fair state. I'm a children's nurse, so I have a fair idea of what I'd expect to see. And I see differences in my patients between those born early and those born at term or without complication. And we have our consultant anaesthetists who will change how they anaesthetise a child because they know they were born preterm, and will take consideration into how long they will recover. Having a bit of oxygen isn't as much of a worry, and the parents go, oh yes, we were on oxygen at home for 12 weeks, I'm not going to flip my lid. And you'll see a difference between preemie parents and kind of term baby parents, well child parents. And why is that? Why does that get so lost when I'm a bit more grown up? Not that I'm any taller than them, but
absolutely. Thank you. I think, it's for me, it's quite timely, like this conversation, because I think, the boys are, 9 years old now, and it's still this kind of like, internal conflict of, this was all supposed to be over now, but, it's really kind of, it's ongoing. And I often lie there just worrying and thinking, what's it going to be like when, they're older, and, are they going to be able to get in touch with kind of people who've had similar experiences? And, it's really nice that,
but we're not going anywhere.
We're not going anywhere.
We will be ready when they join our Facebook group at 18 years old.
Yes.
Come on.
So very importantly, how can people get in touch with you guys or find out more about your network?
So we have a little reminder. This is just, we both would just forget what we're called if we didn't have it written down in front of us.
We'll pop it in all the description as well, so people can go straight to the link.
Signed by the wonderful Lauren. So we have lots of ways. Lots of them are understandably going to be electronic and online. Because of our reach, we're wanting to make sure we can connect with people in different time zones. Languages, I'm not very good at French, so maybe English is best to stick into that. We've got our website, which is where we're trying to draw together this kind of new knowledge and new research. And there's a contact us form, so you can email us at adultpreemies@gmail.com, or you can get in touch with us via Twitter, or X is what it's called now in the UK. We're at Adult Preemies. You can tweet us, you can have a look at our page. We've also got a couple of Facebook groups. We've got the Adult Preemie Advocacy Network, which is a closed group, but we invite everyone and anyone who has a want to know or an experience of prematurity. This could be in a professional capacity, a personal capacity. And then we have our other group, which is Adult Preemie Network, which is a closed group again, but just for those born preterm, that we have that safe space to talk about those things that are really personal, or things that we think other people just maybe haven't shown an understanding of, that we just feel they have a nice safe space to share. And we share things as well. And it's a really interesting space to be in, really interesting.
Well, I think I definitely called it at the beginning to say that this is probably, Matt, I don't know if I'm speaking for you, but probably one of our most special episodes that we've done. Bless both of you for the work that you're doing and being able to use your side and your experience to make some real changes in the world for all of our preemies out there. It's just absolutely amazing. What are you thinking, Matt? I can see your brain.
Oh no, I'm just to be honest, it's my favorite episode to date. It's really it means a lot to kind of meet ladies such as yourselves who are ex-preemies, and this is your story. I think it's really the focus has always been on just kind of getting through the boys' early years, but it's great to meet people who are adults and thriving and really working hard to kind of connect other people together. So thank you. It's my favorite episode today. It means a lot to them.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're not always cheery and happy. Life can suck still. There are good days and bad days, and there's so many things that we want to do that just feel a little bit out of our reach. But that sometimes eggs me on, that if my kind of health, I have some chronic health conditions, if I'm thinking they're holding me back, I will be a stubborn cow and say, no, thank you, I will find a way. If I've done so many things in my life, I can therefore conquer this. It just takes sometimes a bit of time,
The preemie
bit of
fight
love and
lives
cuddles.
on.
Oh yeah, I'm
That
stubborn.
resilience and
Ooh.
fighting spirit that kept us alive just doesn't
Yeah.
end. So sorry for the teenage years. You might.
Yeah.
They're coming, Matt. They're coming. Yeah. Such a blessing to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Evening.
Is it evening for
Yeah,
you?
yeah. It's evening.
Thanks for letting us
Australia
share.
and-
We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Bye. That's a wrap on another episode of the NICU Live Network. Thanks for joining us today. To stay connected, please make sure you're following us on social media.
And if you found value in this episode, please share, like, or comment.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah.